Hello, beautiful beings of light. Jane Warren Campbell here today to share something I've been going through where I had this awareness of deep grief and a recognition of what that means at this time and why that grief is arising. I was doing a light language session with my son, and in that I touched within a sadness within him that was so deep that I started crying, and I had that feeling in my throat when you're holding back the tears, like I could have just been sobbing. The sadness was so deep. And I immediately recognized that the sadness was not for him, it was also for me as well. I, over the last week, have been in extreme fatigue, deeply processing. For the first 2 days, I had a splitting headache, and I slept for 2 days and nights straight. I was just absolutely wiped. So it was a huge transformation, a huge shift, and releasing and letting go. And what is letting go is this sadness that I also had within myself. It's a kind of grief, because as this sadness was arising, I realized that I was in deep grief, and I was exploring what that grief was about. And when I did this light language for my son, I got a taste of that, because what it was for him is he's this beautiful being, just an absolute loving, awake, expansive soul. And it was related to something personal in his life that hasn't manifested yet. And it's like, why hasn't this manifested for such a beautiful being? And that led me to recognizing within myself. Earlier in the day, I had read a post that a friend of mine wrote, and it was about being in the forest, and it was absolute poetry, the way she described the drops on the leaves and the way the sunlight was streaming into the forest, and all these different aspects of the forest in what she wrote that was just pure beauty. And I started to cry when I read her post. It was part of what the sadness was about, and the grief is that we've been living in this world that has not recognized that beauty. It's been about striving, and money has been the most important thing in the world. I remember when I was younger and natural disasters would happen, and one of the first things they would do was put a monetary value on this disaster that everybody was suffering through, but it was the money that was important instead of what it had done to these people's lives. It used to drive me crazy. And what I'm recognizing now is, as a highly sensitive being, which many of us who are holding the light so deeply certainly are a highly sensitive being, this world that we've been living in is so empty, so void of everything that would fill us up, and so cruel. I remember being told as a child I just needed to toughen up because I was too sensitive. But you can't toughen up a sensitive person by being mean to them or expecting them to respond differently to their environment. It's like nobody ever thought of, well, maybe they need more love and care and tenderness in this world. And so I'm recognizing that the grief that I've been feeling in this week of this deep fatigue as everything gets moved and transformed out of my body is because I can feel that love returning to the world. I can feel the frequency of us moving into this higher vibration where the essence of love is there, and the world is changing into that. And it's part of what I recognize is that when we're in the trauma, and for me, just surviving in this world has been trauma, let alone major traumas that I had in my childhood as well. But just not fitting into the world is trauma enough. So you're always in this survival mode. Your body is never completely relaxed, never completely still. And now I can feel that coming. Now I'm feeling like I can soften into the world, and I can let go and really be here. And it's only then that the grief and the sadness of having to survive in the world that we've been living in, the 3D world that's been so difficult, but I didn't even realize the difficulty because I was just in survival mode. I was just making it through. And now there is that energy there that is softening underneath that survival. And then it's only then when the grieving can really begin and the sadness can truly surface. And so when I read this poetry, it just was a deep yearning to return to the world where everyone sees that, everyone knows that. And I read something recently about the song in the forest, and that moved me as well. It's because I have this deep connection with the trees. I've written this book, Conversations with a Tree. It's all about a tree asking me to be her scribe. I had no idea that I would be channeling a tree. And the messages are so loving and so beautiful. And they describe how humans and trees used to have a very conscious, symbiotic relationship where we really understood that we need the trees and the trees need us. And when I heard about this song of the forest, it was just a deep yearning for me, for us to return to that awareness. And even my light language, the songs of light, when I first started bringing through light language, it was more like making up songs and bringing through tones. And I was told that the tones would be described as songs of light. It's like sound is everything. Music is everything. Everything has a sound. I even learned the other day that sunlight, as it comes through our eyes, gets interpreted as sound by the brain. It's fascinating. So as we're rising into this awareness of this new world, that is where the deep grief was allowed to surface and come forward. And I recognize that the way to get to the place where we can feel that love that's underneath all this old energy that's now pushing the 3D out and away, and so we can feel this love underneath, it comes from not giving too much attention to what's going on in the outside world, but to really be present in our own lives, to be present in the moment, to be very aware of not allowing our thoughts to go past and future, because that's where all the old programs are. It's like our mind goes searching for these old programs to keep us limited. When we stay in the moment and we stay present with ourselves and in our own lives, we have a much better chance of feeling that love energy that's coming through. And it also comes from looking at our shadows. We have to do this because we're not going to find the way without doing this. And my light language really helps to show the shadows that are deeply hidden there. My son wasn't aware of this sadness, but it was so profound when I touched into it. When I explained it to him, it definitely made sense to him that it was there. And the light language can find that. That's only one tool. Find whatever you can to get in touch with these old limiting programs that you have about yourself. Because as long as we're holding those programs, our mind pulls us into them and we're responsive and reactive to the world instead of just being able to see the world, witness it, have compassion, but not get pulled in any way. And so doing our shadow work is another aspect of that. I made a list so I would remember to bring forward what needed to happen for us to get there. Another thing is quiet time. It doesn't even need to be meditation. It can just be time where there's no music, there's no activity, there's no other people. It's just retreat somewhere, even if it's just to your own bedroom, and let yourself be with yourself. When we always have music on or something in the background, there's always some stimulus, and it's almost like many of us are afraid of just being in quiet and alone with ourselves with no stimulus. Oh my goodness, what will we find there? But that's where we really get in touch with the love essence that is here. That's where we really begin to feel our surroundings and feel our presence in our surroundings. We come back more into this moment, because when we're in this quiet time, it's important not to go into the the mind and follow our thoughts and go past and future, but to explore what is within us that maybe wants to surface at this time. Or it's like the art of contemplation. Instead of going outside of ourselves to find answers to questions that we may have, we can just sit in our own stillness and contemplate, I wonder what this means for me. And just really let ourselves get in touch with that inner knowing and that inner awareness. And also to recognize that there is a new reality here. The more we keep our focus on the old world, the more that's going to be a part of our experience. We really create our own experiences. They start from the inside, from our belief systems. They get projected out. Our eyes see that, bring it back in and interpret it. We're really creating it all ourselves. So if we can stay focused on what we would like this world to be, and to be focused on what we feel that we are excited about or interested in, what brings us alive, even if we can't get in touch with something that we feel like is a big purpose, just something that we like to do, to give ourselves more time for that so that we can feel into what is already good in this world. And there's so much expansion for us as humans. Like, the world is so much more than we've been told and than we know. I mean, when I learned that the sunlight turns into sound in our brain, it's like, yes, that just makes so much sense to me. Everything is sound. In the beginning was the word. Everything is frequency and movement. Sound makes movement. Sound creates geometry. Cymatics has shown us that. And this is the magic that we're returning to. This is the expansiveness of who we are, that our bodies are much more than we've been told. So I wanted to share that today, to know that we are moving out of this density where we can finally admit to ourselves how difficult it's been living in this 3D world, and feel the love that's arising so that we can soften into this new world that we really want to be living, and we can put our focus on the new world that we really want to be living. What would be the perfect world for you? Let that be your focus. Let that be your creation. Let that be where you put your energy. And keep yourself in a place where you are ready to expand. Let your higher self know that you're ready to expand and move into the fullness of who you are. So today I would like to offer some light language to support that. Some light language for us to move into the fullness and the recognition of who we already are, the highest aspect of our being. We don't have to play small anymore. We don't have to carry the old wounds. It's time to look in and find those and just let them go, so that we can really radiate the brilliance of who we are. This is how we change the world. The more of us who do this, the more we will be bringing this beautiful light, love frequency higher and higher and higher into the awareness of humanity in this world. So please join me by bringing your own sacred presence into this light language. Please drop into your center. Just bring all of your energy right here, right now, into this being that you are, and just close your eyes if you feel called and feel this frequency within your body. And even if you don't feel it, know that it's working. For the sensitives who do feel, they can let you know that it's working. And I feel it profoundly in my body when I do it, also when other people are offering light language. So it really is having a shift in our frequency. And I've been doing light language daily for my own healing. It's very pardon me, very different doing it for yourself. But I've realized that there's aspects of my health where I want healing. And every time I do it, I'm yawning and yawning and yawning, which is how my body releases. So I don't even know what it is being released. I just allow it to move through my body, trusting and knowing that it doesn't need to be there anymore. But that's a sign that the light language is truly, the frequency of the light language is doing what it needs to do. So just drop in now, touch him with your heart, and just let this light language touch your heart. And if in your own space you feel like making sound, feel free to join in and let the sound move through you. It's a beautiful experience to offer that to yourself. Hishatkiyasha, Hishakwa 8 Kiyashniata. Mashyaka Hashini, Tikayano, 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 Shaktika, Shatika, Shiatsiatiki Shana, Masiatiki Shanatiki, Ashatiki Ishkanahatiki Eski, Ushako 8, Koshiakwa, Ashiatiki, 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 Ashiatiki. I'm just working with people's minds. What I'm getting is, in hearing these words, many people are like, what do you mean? Just moving all that, so much movement in people's minds, trying to allow everything that's been said to really anchor in about the reality changing. There we go. Stillness. Whew. It's like leaving the mall and walking into a forest. The moment you walk out the door of the mall, you're in a forest. It's like such an extreme shift that's very beautiful. So just imagine that forest and the stillness of being in the forest and the songs from the birds. Maybe there's frogs croaking, gentle breeze, the smells of the earth, and the beautiful energy from the trees. Shiatiki ashana, siya siyasa, tiasa niyashatiki shatik ashatiki eski. Ishakwa atno siaka, tiashanatiki sana, makshiatiki sato shiakui. Shiakui sakayano tiki ishikatiki ishna tiki asha ku nakatiki ikana. Huna shatiki asha tatiki shana. Shako e tako shiako e sakayano tikiasi te shiakoti. Now we're working with your throats. It's almost as if everyone is afraid to speak their truth, afraid to be somebody more expansive, afraid to be the fullness of who you are. And so they're working with the throat to open that up, to open it up, to be safe, to express who you really are, to be the fullness of you, to be the newness of you. Let yourself be the new person you are now. We hold ourselves back from the expansion that wants to happen, from the growth, thinking that things should be the way they always have been, or looking outside of ourselves for permission on who we're supposed to be. Let it arise within you and trust that we are ready to expand. So much enormous expansion is available and ready for us. So let yourself shift and change. Last week I was saying, like, every day I feel like someone new, like it's just every week I'm somebody new. This is what we're doing right now. It's really important to let ourselves do this, to change. And that's what this is. I was feeling in the throat. Vishatki ashatki shanahasiaka ashkanahitasia. Makshatke skotiati. Yaktas shanatka eshki. Ishaku atkayanosi shaha. Shatiashiyatatki. Shatike tasia tikayano. Tikayano. Shiakwa tatia shatki asha. Makshatke iskiatki ishka. So just finishing up by allowing all that energy to settle into the heart, to really receive this transmission, these light codes and let them anchor deeply in. I invite you to listen often to the light language piece so that you can awaken that within yourself more and more. And I want to thank you for being present, for sharing your beautiful light in the world. And I will see you soon. So much love.